How's it going, everybody? A day late to this, possibly 2 days depending on when I get this video out, but I am here to cover the Remnant 2 patch notes of the most recent patch for this game. I've yet to read this myself about a day after it actually released, so it's going to be a surprise for me, but I'm going to try to keep this straight and to the point, just reading the patch notes, so let's get right into it. Alright, so first off is the Aberration Domination event. Embrace the eerie atmosphere as the veil between realms grows thin, granting the root an opportunity to unleash a horde of menacing aberrations across all worlds. From October 27th to October 31st, gear up and face this haunting challenge head on. Defeat these sinister foes and collect the elusive Corrupted Shards, a rare material with untold potential. Head over to the enigmatic Dwell in Ward 13, where you can trade these corrupted shards to craft corrupted versions of some special weapons. Show the root that even in the darkest times, our resolve shines brighter than ever. Alright, now we get down to some of the fixes, which is performance and crashes, general optimizations to improve performance in many areas of the game, address performance issues with Annihilation boss fight, address performance issues with Bloat King boss fight, address performance issues with Mother Mind boss fight. Fixed an issue where some players would get stuck on initial splash screen, where using the Soulbinder mod during the second phase of Shahala fight could cause a crash, and where the game could potentially crash when starting a new game with no internet connection. Also fixed an issue where Cancer's tentacle attack would cause too many vines to appear and affect performance. And now we move on to quality of life. Improve evade detection as client in multiplayer games. Dev note, we made some changes that should noticeably increase the responsiveness of evading while in co-op as a client. Updated the multiplayer join process to make for a smoother overall experience. Dev note, clients will now join at or near the host's location instead of automatically starting in spectator mode, unless the host is in a boss fight. Added loadouts. Dev note, players can now create a gear preset and then recall it with a single button press. This includes weapons, mods, mutators, archetypes, skills, relics, fragments, etc. Loadouts will also save and recall traits, but will only recall them if you have the Orb of Undoing in your inventory. Loadouts cannot be used in combat. This seems like a big one. Progression balance. In this patch, we wanted to clean up armor and damage reduction. There was a large discrepancy between different armors when considering armor granted versus weight. Some armors would grant incredible armor per weight point, others would fall behind greatly. Our goal was to smooth this out. We did this by creating a curve where light armor has the most efficient ratio of armor granted per weight cost, and the heaviest armor was the least efficient, but still grants a lot more than light. There are a few variants, but lighter armor sets and individual pieces will have a higher armor to weight ratio than heavier armors. With this change, we also moved some armor weight values around to make sure we could maintain a proper ratio across the board. Because of this, some armors gained weight, like Challenger's armor for example, but to compensate, we've made an adjustment to Strongback, which you can read about in the trait section. In addition, we fixed the stamina cost penalty for each armor weight class so that they represent a better trade-off between damage reduction, weight, and stamina costs. What this means is that the heaviest armor will have a stronger stamina cost for stamina-based actions. Light armor and medium armor will maintain their +2 and +1 frame buffs. With these armor changes, we've also made a bunch of adjustments to utility and survivability items buffs, so that players who want to wear armor that grants less survivability than Leto's 1 and 2 have more survivability options via trinkets, and more reasons to use many of the other utility items as well. Ultimately, the goal to make sure there is a real investment required to go full damage reduction, we have absolutely no problem with players hitting the DR cap and being extremely tanky, but because it was so easy before, many of the survivability items were often relegated to your bags. It also meant that many of the armors were tossed aside to go MK2 above all else. Armor. Adjusted armor to weight ratio for all armor sets. Adjusted weight class stamina penalty for medium heavy and ultra heavy. Traits. Changed the behavior of Strongback from granting reduced encumbrance to increased weight class threshold. Dev note. Better fitting with the moniker Strongback. Players spec'd into the trait will be able to wear heavier armor, fit into a lighter weight class, while still maintaining their actual weight. The trait value has changed from -10 encumbrance to +15 weight class threshold. This means that a player wearing a 65 weight armor will still be in the medium weight threshold. Since it increased the baseline 50 by +15, this should open up design space a bit more things like Haymaker's Ring and Weightless Weight, which are based on total weight amount. Okay, this is a long list, so let's get to it. Gear and items. Leto's Amulet increased stamina cost reduction from 15% to 30%. Twisted Idol increased armor boost from 30% to 35%. Alchemy Stone increased lifesteal from 5% to 6%. Amber's Moonstone health threshold increased from 30% to 35%. Bisected Ring reduced incoming damage penalty from 25% to 15%. Blessed Ring increased duration from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. Blood Tinged Ring increased range from 10 minutes to 25 minutes. Booster Ring increased all status resistances from 10 to 25. Burden of the Audacious reduced healing penalty from -75% to -50%. Burden of the Audacious increased healing from 15% to 20%. Cleansing Stone increased range from 7 meters to 20 meters. Cleansing Stone increased healing from 15% to 25%. Conservation Seal increased relic save chance from 3% to 5% per stack. Dran Scavenger Sigil increased healing from 10% to 15%. Dying Ember increased lifesteal from 5% to 6%. Encrypted Loop increased healing from 10% to 20%. Excess Coil increased shield duration from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. Fey Bruiser Ring increased duration from 7 seconds to 15 seconds. Fey Shaman Ring increased regeneration from 25 per sec to 0.334. Guardian's Ring increased duration from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. Low Yield Recovery Ring increased healing from 5% to 6%. Low Yield Recovery Ring increased duration from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. Navigator's Pendant increased health and stamina from 20 to 25. Navigator's Pendant Rusted increased health and stamina from 15 to 20. Reaping Stone increased lifesteal from 2% to 3%. Rerouting Cable reduced stamina threshold from 25 to 20. Ring of Deflection increased deflection chance from 20% to 35%. Ring of Grace increased healing from 10% to 15%. Ring of the Robust increased armor value from 15 to 20. I don't know how to say that. Samoflange, I'm gonna assume, increased damage reduction from 50% to 60%. Seal of the Impress reduced stamina penalty from 10 to 5. Tightly Wound Coil increased shield granted from 10% to 15%. Tomb Dweller's Ring increased max stack count from 1 to 3. Vacuum Seal increased range from 100% to 150%. Vacuum Seal increased shield granted from 10% to 15%. Shield Break Mutator changed to Shielding Strike. Max upgrade now grants charge attack a damage bonus based on amount of shield present and does not consume the shield. Now we move on to weapons. Rune Pistol Mod Soulbrand converted to Aura instead of a single burst AoE. The effect now travels with the player while active so that they may mark enemies they come in contact with. Archetypes. Challenger. Rampage reduced the rampage damage required requirement to trigger Berserk from 400 per stack to 135 per stack, increased movement and reload speed while active. Juggernaut added reduced melee stamina cost while active. Now, as much as I'd love to cover the bug fixes, it is literally more than half of the page, so that it's more than what I already read to you. So I'm gonna leave this page linked down below, and if you guys want to skim through it yourselves, you absolutely can. You can see it, of course, on screen now as I scroll through very slowly here. But yeah, if you want to read the bug fixes, I'm going to leave that up to you guys, because it is literally more than what I've already read, and this video is already probably about 10 minutes by now. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Let me know what you guys think of the patch notes so far. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. I am very intrigued by the whole armor weight class rebalance. It sounds interesting. I wonder how much it'll affect people's builds. It sounds like they basically tried to make it so that light armor matters, which I totally get, because I didn't think it really felt like it mattered that much. I don't know. It didn't feel necessary whatsoever. I felt like I could just stick to heavier armors for sure. I did like the tankier builds as they seem to be, I don't want to say nerfing, because honestly, a lot of this gear got buffs. Actually, I think almost everything in here, if not everything in here, got a buff, and a lot of that was stuff that I used for tanky builds. So it sounds like maybe they're buffing some of the gear and items to maybe make up for that armor balance, so that way people's tanky builds don't get messed up too much, maybe? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below, but that's gonna do it for me today here, and I'll see y'all in the next one. I apologize for this being late. I think it's gonna be even later than 1 to 2 days. I apologize. I had stuff going on, but I'll see y'all in the next one. Thank you so much for coming through. Later.